Was Tony Soprano's handling of Feech La Manna a masterclass in leadership or a mistake?
It was this old mustache named Feech La Manna.
Feech was made on the other side before the electric light. Then he made his way over to New Jersey. He actually had his own card game, the one that Jackie Aprile Sr. and Tony Soprano robbed back in the day that earned them respect.
If it wasn't for me, you two kids would have caught a vicious beating, to say the least.
In Season 5, Episode 1, Feech returned from prison after serving a 20-year sentence as part of the class of 2004 old not rats on a new ship.
I look around.
My nephew.
Right in the middle of my story.
As opposed to another Jersey guy in the class of 2004, Tony Blundetto, Feech had no plans to go full civilian or stay out of the trouble that he loved to make. Granted, Feech sure was aggressive in prison, according to him in his stories, but he assured Tony that he had no plans to step on anybody's toes.
You know me, I'm an entrepreneur. Get my shy going. Sports book, whatever you say.
As long as you don't step on anybody's toes.
Me? I'm Fred Astaire.
What's this Feech tells me? You got a bear up there at the house?
It seems like Feech actually goes out of his way to step on toes, like Sal Vitro's, for example.
My nephew does the lawns in this neighborhood.
I've been working this neighborhood for 26 years.
Now, how did Tony respond to this? Tony's solution was for them to split the street, which leaves Paulie unsatisfied because Paulie's guy Sal had the whole street to begin with. And Paulie doesn't like someone else coming in and deciding who's going to mow his Aunt Mary's grass.
Well, what do you know about who belongs to what?
Tony could have told Feech, that's not yours to mess with. It goes back to how it was. But he didn't.
What did they ever do to this guy?
Obviously, he wasn't rehabilitated.
We also see Feech bringing Johnny Sack business.
You're so concerned about my end. Why don't you put one of those cars through my shops?
Johnny Sack told me about this guy in Newport.
Making stops at Junior's and leaving his stuff around, almost as if to let Tony know that he'd been there without letting him know.
Feech was here.
Oh, yeah, he came to pay his respects. You ruled against Feech?
And even though Tony told Feech that his nephew could take half the block from Sal Vitro, apparently Feech told Junior that Tony basically ruled against him. Ruling against him, in my opinion, would be telling him that his nephew couldn't have any of it, even though we know he's not entitled to any of it in reality anyway. So to me, that was like another insult from Feech.
He's an important man.
Just like Junior said.
On top of that, you got Ralph now pissing in their ears. Any day you'll have a mutiny on your hands.
He was referring to Ralph, but such may have been the case again with Feech if Tony hadn't done something about it. Sal Vitro was tempted to go to the police, but then didn't, because Paulie convinced him not to. Dr. Ira Fried also held back because of his friendship with Tony. But who's next? It's bad for business.
I was at the clam broth house the night he beat that longshoreman to death over a corner table.
No, sir.
Here we go. Memory lane.
I think that Tony's actions were justified and necessary to maintain control and discipline in the family, as well as to help protect them from their own legal liability.
With the cops on it, but how much faith have I got in that?
My wife at this point. She's got me thinking about going to the cops.
Did I learn nothing from Richie Aprile?
Tony got really angry at Richie for raising his hand to Davey Scatino while these other guys were around, including Dr. Ira Fried.
Doc, sit down. It's a misunderstanding, right, Richie?
No, not really. I got tickets for the Reales-Harris fight tonight.
In Richie's defense, Davey was really out of line and really being disrespectful by basically saying F you to Richie, in addition to, taking 45 more boxes of ZD from Tony. Now, could Tony have handled it differently? Was there a more diplomatic or better long-term solution?
I'll learn. I came to ask for my game back.
Tony let Feech run the executive game, and this was after Feech had already caused trouble with the whole Sal Vitro issue. So it's not like Tony didn't give Feech another chance. He let Feech's nephew get half of the street too, which had originally belonged solely to Sal Vitro.
I could throw some high rollers your way. Friends of mine.
They like to bust each other's balls at the card game, but obviously Tony takes some things personally, and maybe Feech does too.
What do you get when you cross an accountant with a giant jet airplane? A boring 747.
So what happened to Feech after Tony dealt with him? How did this impact the rest of the crew?
This was the better move than taking him out. Christopher agrees, by the way. Well, it's nice that he agrees.
We know that Christopher and Benny helped set Feech up. Still also knew what Tony's plans were, and he was actually someone who had originally complained about Feech.
Nothing's ever good enough. Praise, money.
Polly was no fan of Feech, as we know. Now, Larry Barisi thought that Tony, quote, sent the wrong ex-con back to prison, but I think Larry was more frustrated with Tony Blundetto than with the Feech situation.
Poor fucking Feech La Manna.
I mean, Feech knows he's not invincible. He got in trouble with the law before, and he was in prison for 20 years because of it. But I imagine that sitting around for so long, not getting to ply your trade, made him restless. But just because you may have gotten away with whatever you'd gotten away with in the past, before you didn't get away with it, times have changed. It's also easier to get caught now. More cameras, more surveillance.
You don't work this neighborhood!
It was just a matter of time, really, before he got in trouble again. And this time he may have taken down the others with him. Not intentionally, but just from getting caught up in it.
I was wait for a long time. When did that happen? You gotta ask permission to ply your trade?
What about Feech's argument that what's yours is yours, Polly, but what ain't is anybody else's?
Can I have your attention? Apparently, there's been an armed robbery.
Dr. Ira Fried, a doctor and someone who gets to sit in on the executive games, who's a good friend of Tony. Tony says that specifically. Friend. Feech could say, well, Tony was just threatened by me. His insecurity is what caused him to want to get me out of the picture.
I didn't get my invitation.
Maybe Feech could say he thought that Dr. Fried wasn't really a friend of Tony's because he didn't invite Tony to his daughter's wedding, and Feech found that disrespectful, so he wanted to put him in his place. Feech could say he was getting what he was owed after being robbed by Tony when they were younger. Tony could have had Feech killed, sent back to prison, or given another pass. I think Tony made the right move.
Gotta remember, Tony, I still think he is a kid. I'll learn.
Feech says, I'll learn. Well, what else is it going to take? We're not running a school here, kid. Was there a better way for Tony to handle the situation? Or was it inevitable?
All good questions.
Great. It's the fucking answer.
Who says there is one?
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think? Did Tony make the right decision in how he handled Feech?